Hello, I'm Ollie and this is CriminOlly, where I talk about crime, pulp, horror, that kind of thing. Today, some classic crime and some classic horror. It's my weekly wrap-up. So before I do anything else, I just wanted to say welcome if you're a new subscriber. So there's a bunch of new people who've subscribed over the last few days. I think largely off the back of my Goodreads collaboration video. So if you're one of those people, welcome. It's great to have you here and hope you find some stuff to enjoy on the channel. So this is my weekly wrap-up video where I talk about what I've been reading in the last week, what I think I'm going to be reading in the week ahead, and talk about some channel stuff as well. But before I do that, let's talk about some stats. So there are two challenges that I'm kind of tracking myself against at the moment. So one is the 50 books I want to read before I'm 50. That date is rapidly approaching. It's at the end of April. And then the second one is my Read What You Own challenge, where I'm reading 100 books I already own before I can buy any new ones. So on those two, so on the Read What You Own challenge, I'm at 70 books now. I realised this morning that I'd actually counted a couple of books that I shouldn't have. So there are a couple of books I'd counted towards my goal, which were actually library books, so I didn't own them. So I can't count them in a Read What You Own challenge. So I've taken those off, but I have read a few things this week. So I'm now at 70 books out of the 100. In terms of the 50 before I'm 50, I've only read 13. So I do have a lot still to get through. I've got quite a lot planned out for March and April. I've kind of managed to slot all the remaining books in, and I still think I can just do it, but it is going to be tight. Okay, so in terms of what I've read this week then, so a few different things, so a couple of book club things. So for my birth year book club, which I run on my Discord server, which anyone is welcome to join, we are reading this month So Long and Thanks for All the Fish by Douglas Adams, which so far I seem to be the only person who's read. So we had been reading the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy series. That's the fourth in the series, but people seem to be slightly losing interest in it. So anyway, I read that one this week. I really enjoyed it. Douglas Adams is a very funny writer. He's got a lovely quirky sense of humour, and this one I thought was better than the previous book in the series in that there was a bit more of a plot going on. So there's quite an interesting kind of plot development at the start of this one, and he takes it in some interesting directions, and it's very funny as well. So I enjoyed that a lot. And then we also read, or I also read, The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson, which is a book I'd read before. I really enjoyed rereading it, and I also really enjoyed the experience of reading it as part of a group read. So it's such a subtle and nuanced book that reading it with a load of other people and looking at everyone's comments was really helpful in terms of helping me to understand the book, I think, better than I had on my previous read of it. So it's as the title would suggest, it's a ghost story, a haunted house story about a psychologist who gathers a small group of people and takes them to this haunted house to kind of do an experiment and see what happens. Particularly focuses on a woman called Eleanor, who's had some kind of spooky goings on in her past. It's just a wonderful book. It's so beautifully written. It's so atmospheric. It's very creepy at times. But it's kind of wonderfully balanced and feels quite... I struggle to use the word... I don't know if I should use the word realistic, but that's what it felt like to me. It felt like a realistic book about people investigating, a potential haunting. So yeah, I think it's a fantastic book and really, really enjoyed it very much. So yeah, reading it as part of a group I thought was a fantastic way to read it, because it's such an interesting book and everybody had a slightly different take on it. So yeah, if you fancy getting involved in these group reads in the future, we do one a month for the birth year book club. Everyone's very welcome to join my Discord. The link is in the description for the video. So yeah, jump in and we can talk books there. And on that note, I ran a poll on the community tab on my channel to pick our March book. And the book that has won is Something Wicked This Way Comes by, I forgot his name, Ray Bradbury, which I have read before. I read it quite recently, but it's a fantastic kind of classic horror novel again. So that's from 1962 and was the birth year book choice of the channel Books of Blood. So yeah, we'll be reading that in March. So if you fancy reading that along with me and some of my subscribers, then as I say, jump onto the Discord and we can chat about it there. So I also read a classic crime novel. So from this, again from a lovely Library of America edition, I read The Blunderer by Patricia Highsmith. So I'm doing a read through of all of Patricia Highsmith's books this year with Anne Novella, who's another excellent booktuber. So The Blunderer, I think, was Highsmith's third book. I didn't enjoy it quite as much as the previous two. So the ones we've read so far have been Strangers on a Train, which I thought was just a really good suspense novel, and Carol, which was a really interesting and nuanced romance, which I really enjoyed. The Blunderer had a lot going for it. Had a fantastic opening chapter with a quite brutal murder, and some really interesting psychology and stuff like that. But it felt to me a bit too similar to Strangers on a Train. It felt like Highsmith was examining a lot of the same things. So again, it's about the relationship between two men, one of whom is kind of quite dangerously psychopathic, and the other of whom maybe isn't quite so much. But there's a lot of interesting stuff there. But as I say, I didn't like it quite as much as Strangers on a Train. I just think the central concept isn't quite as strong. So I've just finished this morning Street Players by Donald Goines, which is a 70s crime novel. So Donald Goines was a very, very successful African-American crime writer. This is a book about a pimp and kind of the various characters that revolve around him. Some great character work in here, but the plot was definitely a bit lacking. There isn't really much of a plot, so it was quite interesting and a lot happened in it. But it didn't really have a strong plot that held it all together, in my opinion anyway, but I did enjoy it. Other things I've read then would be, actually there's only one other thing I've read, which is Child of God by Cormac McCarthy. So a quite early Cormac McCarthy novel. I think it came out in 1973. I'm not sure when his first book was published, but yeah, from 1973, quite a short novel, and an interesting book. So about this guy in the States somewhere, like a rural area, who does horrific things basically. So basically a serial killer, and it was an interesting character study. The dialogue and things like that, the sense of place, are fantastic in it, and it was definitely quite disturbing at times. But I did end up thinking, what was the point of that? It didn't grip me, and it didn't feel like it's a book that didn't leave me with any particular sense of anything, if that makes sense. So definitely an interesting experiment in writing, but I didn't think it was a fantastic book. That's another one I've read for my Disturbing Books project, which I'm doing at the moment, where I'm reading disturbing books that have been recommended by people. So, definitely an interesting book, but one that didn't particularly click with me, if I'm honest. So I'm currently reading How to Read a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix, which is a buddy read picked by one of my patrons. So that's a perk of my Patreon, is you can get to do a buddy read with me, and you get to pick the book. So this was chosen by Mariah Napier, who's a subscriber and patron, and it's fantastic. I'm about halfway through. It's really good. It's like classic Grady Hendrix in that it's quite funny. It's interesting. It's in its kind of reflection on kind of society and popular culture and things like that, but it's also really creepy. There was just this one scene that I've just got past which was so creepy. So yeah, I'm enjoying that a hell of a lot, and looking forward to getting that finished. I think the next thing I'm going to start is going to be Aliens Vasquez by V. Castro. So V. Castro, an excellent Latinx writer whose work I really enjoy. Aliens is one of my favourite movies. Vasquez is my favourite character for Aliens, so this feels like a match made in heaven. So I'll be doing this as a buddy read from MJ from the channel Reading This Life, so really looking forward to getting into that. And then after that, I'm not sure. I've got a few other things I need to get through this month, but I'm not entirely sure which one I'm going to grab next. It might well be, actually, this one, Specter by Stephen Laws, which we're reading as part of the From Hell book club that Kelly Hooked on Books runs on her channel. So this was so that's a club where we read kind of vintage horror, and the members of the club get to pick a book or nominate a book, and this was the one that I chose. So I can't remember if I've read this one before or not, but I've read a lot of Stephen Law's and really like him. So yeah, looking forward to reading that. So I'll probably pick that up this week. So in terms of channel stuff, then I've had a super busy week at work, so I haven't really got the next week quite planned out in terms of the channel. But in the last week, you've had an unboxing video for the Abominable Book Club, so I put that up yesterday. You have had my Goodreads collaboration video, which I've mentioned already. So this is a bunch of booktubers, many of whom I didn't really know before. So it's been a great way of meeting new people in the community. So a bunch of us did a project where we read the last 10 years of winners in a particular category of the Goodreads Choice Award. So I did horror. And yeah, it was a bit of a painful experience, but it ended up with quite an interesting video, I think. And that video is done, you know, people seem to like that video. It's done very well, so so that's pleasing. So yes, did that. I did a review of my Kindle Basic, which is a device I really like. So here it is, nice small Kindle, small and cheap. So yeah, did a review of that. Also did a review of the book Geek Love by Catherine Dunn, and a kind of book to movie comparison of the novel Jack Returns Home by Ted Lewis, which became the movie Get Carter starring Michael Caine. So that's the kind of stuff you've had on the channel in the last week or so. In the week ahead, as I say, I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to do, but I think I'm going to do tomorrow a video about book snobbery, which is something that continues to annoy me, and I quite enjoy talking about. So I haven't done a video about it for ages, so I think I'm going to do a video about that. Okay, so that's the book, that's the what I've been reading stuff gone through, and the channel stuff gone through. I've got a couple of things to show you that have come through the post. So people may have seen on my community tab a little while ago I put up that I've now got a PO box, so if people want to send me stuff in the mail, they're very welcome to. That would be lovely. And I've had a couple of things come through this week. So one of them I've opened already, the other one I haven't yet. So someone sent me from my Amazon wish list this book, which looks fantastic, called Polk Apocalypse. So edited by Justin Marriott. So it's a guide to post-apocalyptic fiction in kind of novels and comics. And I haven't read this yet, but just having a flick through it, there are so many book covers and things like that in here that I remember. So these Doomsday Warrior books, I had quite a few of those. You can see on the back there, you can see that, an image from the Eagle comic, which I used to read when I was a kid. So there was a great strip in that called Tower King, which I really enjoyed. So yeah, I'm looking forward to reading this. It looks great fun. And I've also got a parcel here which I haven't opened yet, so I thought I would excitingly open it for you live on the channel. So let's see what is in here. I've got no idea what this is. I don't think it's a book that has been sent to me by a publisher or author, because I'm not expecting any of those in the mail at the moment. So I do get those through quite regularly. And I should say as well, actually, it does say in the about section for my channel, but if you are a publisher or an author who would like me to review a book that you've got out, by all means drop me an email, criminolly@gmail.com. All the details are in the about section for the channel, as I say, and we can have a chat about whether it's a book I'd be interested in taking in for review. Anyway, let's have a look and see what's in here. So it is nicely bubble wrapped, whatever it is. Sorry, making a terrible noise. It feels like a hardback, but I've no idea what it is. But yes, lots and lots of bubble wrap, which I will recycle. Oh no, it's not a hardback, it's a paper, it's a large paperback. Oh, okay, I do not know what this is. So it is Flowers of the Sea, 13 Stories and Novellas by Reggie Oliver, which has a nice review on the front from Ramsey Campbell. So the sixth selection of strange stories by Reggie Oliver follows the award-winning Mrs. Midnight. Oliver's variety of subject matter, wit and characterisation and stylistic elegance are on display, as is his gift for telling a good story. So I've not heard of this author before, or this collection, but it looks very interesting. There's a little letter here. Oh, so this is a gift from one of my subscribers, Robbo C. So thank you very much, Robbo, for this. This does look very interesting. So yeah, sent from a a company called Tartarus Press, who I did look up because their print was on the back of the envelope. So they publish kind of quite, what's the word I'm looking for? Slightly esoteric kind of popular fiction, I guess. So stuff that's maybe fallen out of the limelight a bit. And you know, an interesting range of kind of indie horror and things like that as well. So they look like quite an interesting publisher, and this looks like a very interesting collection. So thank you very much, Robbo, for sending this through. I shall look forward to reading this. So, time for a random book from the shelves. Today's book is Royal Flash by George McDonald Fraser, the second in the Flashman series of books. This was picked for me to talk about by one of my patrons, Grace Glue. So thank you, Grace, for asking me to pull this one out and talk about it. So the Flashman books, if you don't know them, are a series of kind of comic historical novels about this character, Harry Flashman, who is a complete cad and a bounder and a terrible human being, but who somehow always manages to come out on top. So they're very amusing. They're quite kind of satirical, but just hugely entertaining as well. So they have decent plots, but a lot of humour, and Flashman is such a kind of dislikable yet likeable character that they're a lot of fun to read. So I've read the first 2 or 3, I think, and have a few more of them. I've got a couple on the shelves, a couple on my Kindle. These are books my dad really likes as well, so I remember these being around the house when I was a kid. So I'm enjoying slowly reading through them. So I hope you found that interesting. Again, if you're a new subscriber to the channel, then welcome. Thank you very much for subscribing. It's really appreciated. Yeah, let me know if you've read any of the books I talked about this week. Let me know what you've been reading. And as always, thanks very much for watching. Hope you're safe and well out there. Hope you're reading good stuff, and I'll speak to you again very soon. Cheerio.